All right, so look, we're gonna establish this like right now. I'm not gonna lie to you, keep it a buck. Look, I am a believer in aliens. To a certain extent, I got my beliefs. We're not gonna go into all that. We're not hear about that, right? But when I hear like these alien abduction stories, when I hear like these UFO sighting stories, it's really hard for me to freaking believe them all. What's good? Did I greet you? How you day going? Morning, evening, night, whenever you're watching this video. Look, I was just reading the Wikipedia, even though we already know what it is, but just being nosy. Alien abduction refers to the phenomenon of people reporting that they believe to be the real experience of being kidnapped by extraterrestrial beings and subjected to physical and psychological experimentation, my bad. People claiming to have been abducted are usually called abductees or experiencers. I did not know about the experiencers. That's kind of a fire title. Now, the real scary part would be, though, what if it really happened? And I don't know, I'm going a little bit conspiracy, just a little bit. Like, what if it really happened to someone, right? And it's like, oh shit, let's say if how everyone says it goes, it really goes, like they're supposed to erase like that time frame, kick your ass back out, whatever. So let's say if that happens, oh, they forget to do that part, and you just happen to remember. You do know, like, you can't tell anyone, right? Because you will look crazy. As you can see, I'm whispering a little lower here because this shit is serious. Like, that would get your. Don't fuck. No, I'm playing. Don't unsub, dog. I wasn't sitting here by no extraterrestrials and then trying to get me to find out what's going on. But no, I gave you that old long retention hold in YouTube intro. That way I can kind of get boosted in the algorithm. But hey, why don't check out Most Convincing Alien Abduction, the Travis Walton story by Mr. Ballin. It's gonna be pretty hard for me to believe this. I'm gonna just let you know right now off the rip. Yo, check out the original video. Link will be in the description below. Well, let's go.
Many people have claimed over the years to have been abducted by aliens. And realistically, there's no tangible evidence that any human being has ever actually set foot in an extraterrestrial spacecraft or another dimension or anything like that. It's just these crazy stories from people that claim this happened to them. And while many of these stories are very quickly cast aside as absolute hoax, not true, not accurate, there's one story, one abduction story that is universally regarded as the most believable and most famous alien abduction story, and that is of Travis Walton. What made this alien abduction story, and that is of Travis Walton.
Travis, the true story of Travis Walton, one man's survival after a terrifying journey. So is this like a book or a movie?
What made this case so famous is that unlike all of the other alien abduction cases where there was never any proof, it was usually one person's firsthand account. In this case, you have a full-scale police investigation. You have up to 16 lie detector tests that were taken by Travis Walton himself, along with the other witnesses and people that were there.
Consistent.
And you have a group of 6 level-headed guys that actually witnessed the abduction take place and have stuck to their story and have passed all lie detector tests and have never changed their story in 40 years. And you would think that at some point you might change your story because they came on.
I'm not gonna lie though. I'm not gonna lie. Not saying Martin convinced. I get it, Mr. Baller. Amazing storyteller. He will lure you in. Blah. But I was thinking that though. Like I would think out of 6 of them, it's like one of them. Like, you know what? Guilt is kind of eating me up. Yo, I gotta tell someone. I gotta say something to someone. But if it's like, no, this is the story. We all sticking to it. Some pretty good evidence. Not hard evidence, but it's some pretty good evidence. I would say that. I'm only a minute and 24 in. Don't do this to me, Mr. Ballet. Oh shit.
And you would think that at some point you might change your story because they came under incredible scrutiny. I mean, it basically derailed most of their careers and their lives because they were labeled as crazy people for believing that a UFO had abducted Travis Walton. I mean, in a way, they became famous, but in all the worst ways. So you have all these elements that make this story seem fairly credible. And even if this wasn't an alien abduction, let's say, how do you account for the past lie detector tests that are talking about UFOs? How do you account for the fact that Travis Walton was really missing for 5 days and has no idea where he was? And there was a full search effort to find him in the area where he would have been. So lots of unanswered questions, but the story itself of when he was actually abducted, and then his own story about what happened once he had been abducted, It makes for just an incredible story. It's been converted into books and movies, and to this day, it remains one of, if not the single most fascinating.
Oh, it sounded like you mentioned like plural though, like books, movies. So is it like multiple ones? Yo, basically, what I'm about to ask is, let me know which one to watch. That's like, yo, this one is worth watching. Oh shit! Damn, I should have rolled up more weed. I got this little bitty shit left, dog. Damn. Ooh, not even gonna lie to you. Watching this while I'm off. Yes, I'm one of the ones that buy random strains. I like to try all that shit. Super lemon haze. You know, it's alright.
And movies, and to this day, it remains one of, if not the single most fascinating purported alien abduction stories ever. But before we get into today's story, if you are a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, well then you've come to the right channel, because that's all I do, and I upload 3 to 4 of these stories every week. So if that's something that interests you, I would encourage you to gently extirpate the like button and then subscribe to my channel and turn on all post notifications so you don't miss any of my weekly uploads. All right, let's dive into the story. By 1975, Travis Walton, who was 22 years old at the time.
I do know what that means. Is what, to get rid of, destroy, some shit like that. I forgot.
Into the story.
Along
By
that
1975, Travis Walton, who was 22 years old at the time, had developed a bad boy reputation in his hometown of Snowflake, Arizona. You know, he rode a noisy Harley Davidson motorcycle through town. He was a wild bull rider, and he was a boxer. And there was this story about Travis when he was with his friends in a car and they were driving down this road, and a bear jumped out of the woods and landed in the middle of the road and was just standing there. And Travis, without any hesitation, leaps out of his car and chases after this huge bear and scares it into the woods, and in fact chased it up into the woods. So Travis was just known as this kind of rebel, you know, problem child a little bit, but he was beloved by his friends. He was just like one of those cool guys that just, he did it his own way. So Travis and the 6 other men that he worked with were loggers. They were given contracts and they would go out and they would clear trees in a certain area. They were not big time with huge equipment to do this. We're talking chainsaws, you know, regular saws and axes. And they would just go out, you know,
like
these
the basic
blue collar, like hard working type guys, and they would clear areas of trees. That's what they did. Now these 7 men, they did a dangerous job. I mean, you're cutting down these huge trees and you're usually working pretty quickly. You know, you're operating, you know, chainsaws that are pretty dangerous. And Mike Rogers, who was the crew boss, who was there the day of this event, he described in a number of his interviews that, you know, the men that he hired to do these jobs, they needed to be incredibly level-headed. They did not strike you as people that would have this fantastical, you know, alien encounter story. On November 5th, 1975, Mike Rogers was given a contract to clear out this huge 1,200-acre plot of land inside of the Sitgreaves National Forest. And he grabbed his crew, they piled into the one pickup truck that Mike owned, and Mike knew that this was going to be a really, really difficult job. It was a huge area to cover, and he told his men up front, we're going to be working really, really hard, so expect long, full days. And so over the first 3 days of the job, even though they were working, you know, long hours and barely taking any breaks, they were behind schedule. At the end of this 3rd day, it's late at night, they've worked all day and everybody is just totally exhausted. And so finally they wrap up and they all pile back into Mike's truck, all 7 of them, and they start driving the access road back down to the main road to get back to the town. And as they're driving, they're not really talking about work at all. They're kind of joking about what they're going to do that night. And as they're driving down the road, and again, it's heavily forested, they look off to the right, and there is some lights in the forest. They would say in interviews that they all noticed it, but it did not stand out as anything particularly
See,
bad.
I think one alien video we watched, y'all had me watch, I think that was the same thing, the same issue I had last time. I was like, yo, I get it. We don't have any real photos. We don't have any real footage. But like he said at the beginning, that's one of the things because, yo, it's not tangible. It's like when people say they go through these moments, it only goes off of he say, she say shit. It's basically like, I'm just telling you ish. Not gonna lie though, at this point, with 7 of them total, I was thinking 6, but he said 7 of them total because one of them got abducted or whatever, right? Nope, you know what? I'm gonna wait till I get to the end because I don't want to put my foot in my mouth just yet. It's there already. Don't get me wrong, but
would say
let's let the video finish. My bad.
It, but it did not stand out as anything particularly bad. It just could be anything. They weren't thinking about it. But as they were driving down this road and this light, I guess, got brighter, or maybe they couldn't help but notice it, they all started commenting on this light, and they're looking at it, and somebody suggested that, oh, it's probably just the moon. You know, it's a full moon. But then one of the guys on the other side of the truck happened to look out his side, away from where that light was, and he goes, no, the moon's over here. It's on this side of the road. So they're like, okay, it's not the moon. And then someone suggested, oh, well, maybe it's a forest fire. Like, maybe we should go check it out. That could be a forest fire. But then Mike Rogers, the driver, the crew boss, was like, no, there's smoke. There's no smoke or anything. And Travis, who, you know, he's the guy that's jumping out of cars to chase down bears. My bad. And he's like a total kind of adrenaline junkie type. He's like, hey, let's just drive over there and see what it is. Like, I don't know, it could be anything. Let's go check it out.
Drop me off first.
Guys in the truck were a little on edge about it, but ultimately said, you know, what's the harm? We'll drive over. We know there's a road that brings us over to that section of the forest. We'll get a look at whatever this is, and then we'll leave. So they drive down this other little access road, and they come to a clearing where these lights were, and they are astounded at what they see. They were all polygraphed separately about what they saw when they reached this clearing. Each of them described the same thing with slightly different details because it's from their own perspective. And the polygraph tests all showed that they were telling the truth. They saw this disc-shaped craft with what looked like panels of lights on the underside, hovering in a clearing, maybe 50 or 100 feet off the ground, not spinning or anything, just floating in midair, as if it was suspended. And the men, in their interviews later on TV shows and books, they would say,
was this one on Unsolved Mysteries?
What struck them was not just the fact that there's this craft here.
Because it's starting to sound familiar. We got to add real quick. Oh, I'm not going to lie. Let's talk a little bit of ish. I'm going to let this ad play. Let me mute it, though. So while this ad is playing, look, I will agree. Not going to lie to you. It is pretty strange for 6 different dudes to tell a somewhat similar story, little different details we heard, blah, blah, blah. But all of it, what's the odds of all of us passing that mug? Somebody would have folded somewhere. Look, I'm legit giving it the benefit of the doubt on some of this ish, but some things I hear, I'm like, I don't know. I feel like a cover up to something here, and I'd rather just play crazy. Well, we all just have to play crazy or go down for some ish. That's where my mind at this point. Not gonna lie to you, but oh shit, I'm not gonna lie though. A lot of things are not adding up. Well, no, that's a problem. A lot of things are adding up. Like shit.
How bizarre it was to see this thing defying gravity. It's not moving, but it's hovering over the air, and it's right in front of us. And one of the men even commented at length, because he would build houses, and he was a handy guy. And he started talking about the structural framework of this craft. He could see that there was really impressive engineering on the underside of this craft. It was just a beautiful, beautiful machine. And they're looking at it, and Travis is so excited when they get to this clearing. He doesn't even know what he's looking at, but much like the bear, where he jumps out and chases the bear, as soon as they were almost at a stop in this clearing right next to the ship, he's jumping out of the car. Nobody else is, just Travis.
Yeah, I get it.
And he starts walking just a little ways away from the car towards this craft. The craft doesn't move. The craft is maybe from where they parked, maybe 50 or 100 feet away from them, and then 50 or 100 feet in the air. And the crew doesn't say anything. They're just dumbfounded by what they're looking at. Travis is also dumbfounded, but he's walking towards the ship. Shit. And he would say in an interview that he was frightened, but he was mostly curious. He knew he was looking at something that no one knew what it was. Some sort of craft. They didn't know what it was, but it was fascinating to him, and he kept walking closer and closer and closer to it.
Oh, gosh. Let me tell you why this is somewhat definitely keeping me on edge right now. Pretty interesting, not gonna lie to you, because I keep it 100. I've always pictured that as well. I was like, if I ever encounter a UFO, I always pictured it to be like a big, beautiful piece of work. Like, yo, I legit picture that, man. And I always wonder, like, if I saw it, I would feel like if I run, I'm screwed. Probably gonna get me. But I just go up to that mall, like, forget it. Oh gosh. But that's if you believe in that stuff, dog. Oh, gosh. Yo,
he knew he was looking at something that no one knew what it was. Some sort of craft. They didn't know what it was. But it was fascinating to him, and he kept walking closer and closer and closer to it. And as the crew kind of came out of their initial shock of seeing this unidentified flying object in the sky, they start yelling for Travis to come back. They had this bad sense that something was going to happen, and they thought, you shouldn't go near it, like, come back. Not to mention, it's hovering in the air? What if it
For
falls
real.
and it lands on you? Like, hey, Travis, come back over here. And then it was like once one person started yelling for Travis to come back, they all did. And so Travis remembered hearing them screaming for him to come back to the car. But he's not really paying any attention. He's still walking. And finally he stops. He's just looking at it. And Travis would say he was just struck at just the beauty of the underside of this craft with all these different panels of lights built into it. It was this incredible piece of machinery.
And I do not think aliens look like them little bubblehead niggas with the two eyes. I mean, bubblehead people with the two big old eyes. I don't think they look like that. I really don't. I do. I was like, it's gonna be something like really like unrecognizable, but like beautiful at the same time, to the point where it's like I'm in shock. But it's like I don't know what to do. What I'm looking at, my eyes are deceiving me. Oh, this shit got me tripping. Look, my bad. Don't mean to go all extra overreactor on you. I'm sorry, but this is creeping me out because this is like the stuff that I picture when it comes to aliens. Now, I don't know if he gets to telling his story and he's like, yo, but it's like they're beautiful as shit. As you can obviously tell, though, I'm one of those ones who strongly believe, but like we're not alone here. Yo, this shit is huge. We're so little. We're not gonna get into it. My bad. We're so little. Overreactors out of me.
And Travis would say he was just struck at just the beauty of the underside of this craft with all these different panels of lights built into it. It was this incredible piece of machinery. And he's looking at it, and then all of a sudden it starts spinning just a little bit. And it starts emitting this noise that all of them reported hearing, this loud mechanical sound. And now the yells from the crew are getting louder and louder. And Travis would say that he knew he needed to turn around and go back, but he just wanted to look for a few more seconds. And he was about to turn and go back to the truck when all of a sudden a beam of light comes out and strikes Travis like a lightning strike. And all of the crew saw this happen. He gets blown 20 feet away. Like he gets lifted off the ground and thrown 20 feet. And they watched it happen. And again, in all of their polygraph tests, they all said the same thing. All passed. He was hit by a ray of light from this UFO, knocked him 20 feet back. Mike Rogers, in a panic, along with everybody else in the crew, they just decide to leave. And they're convincing themselves, as Mike is driving away like a maniac.
What you want me to do?
Travis behind, they're convincing themselves that he's dead already. We just watched him get shot by something. We don't know what that is. And they're freaked out. They don't even know what they saw. They're crying. They're hysterical. These are grown men, just absolutely terrified. And they're driving a little ways until finally Mike just hits the brakes and he stops.
Hey, hell no! Keep this shit going, dog.
To go back for him.
Oh, I'm sorry. Won't you tired? I finished driving this boy. My bad. I'm losing my voice, dog. But I do. It is one of those situations where it's like, it is effed up to just dip out on a dog like that. But I mean, what you want to do? Want me to shoot at the damn UFO? And honestly, it may not even be UFO. It may just be some government issue going on. They just happen to encounter it. So it's like, I mean, but what? Oh, God, I ain't getting into all this shit. Never mind. Nah, I ain't getting into that today. I'm chilling.
And Mike is like, we have to go back for him. He was like, if you guys want to stay here and wait for me, that's fine. But this truck is going back to get Travis. And so the idea of waiting out in the open after seeing what they just saw was even worse than going back. They wanted to stay together. So a little bit begrudgingly, although they knew they needed to, they all got back in the truck, turned around and started driving back up to the UFO site. As they make it back up, they notice that there is no lights up there.
All jokes aside though, honestly, I would have went back too. Not gonna lie to you. Something like this, I would feel like I would never in my life, and this could be stupid for what I'm about to say, but I would feel like I would never ever in my life have this opportunity ever again. I would never ever see anything like this again. Regardless, I can't tell anyone. I'm gonna sound stupid. As you see, as I'm watching the damn video, it's hard for me to believe it. But imagine legit if they really did go through that shit. And it sounded like he didn't pass, or there was no F, with the D on it, because I want to say it for YouTube, whatever, because he's alive to tell the story. So I'm like, all right, so what would be the motive to lie? I started thinking like, okay, would it be for these movie deals, book deals, brand deals, whatever? I don't know. Maybe that could be the case. I haven't pushed that one off yet. But a lot of shit is getting checked off. Like, well, nope. It's not like Travis was, the word I want to say. I don't know. I'm just being honest with you. It's Hollywood. It's business, baby. Okay, stop playing so much for real. But no, it's not Hollywood. I just said that because I don't know why.
And so the idea of waiting out in the open after seeing what they just saw was even worse than going back. They wanted to stay together. So a little bit begrudgingly, although they knew they needed to, they all got back in the truck, turned around and started driving back up to the UFO site. As they make it back up, they notice that there is no lights up there. The craft is gone, and there's no Travis. And they get out, and now Mike is uncontrollably crying because he feels like they just abandoned him, and where did he go? Everybody else is in shock. They can't believe it. They start screaming for Travis. They're running around the woods, yelling for Travis, looking for signs of Travis. They really don't know what happened, but they know Travis is not here. And after a little bit of time of looking, they're like, we have to tell the police. And they knew that it was going to be bad for them when they told police. The story is a UFO came and zapped Travis and now he's gone. That doesn't really sit well with police.
Right,
but
like why would I want to tell that story?
They wanted to find Travis and they were very concerned about their friend. They knew they had to tell police. Mike and a few of the other crew were just unable to even think. They were crying, they were upset, and so finally they get to a payphone, the first payphone they saw, because it's 1975, and Ken Peterson, who was this very kind of simple, matter-of-fact guy, recently married, just very simple guy, very level-headed guy. He decides to call the police because he's the only one who was, I guess, composed enough to do it. And so he calls the sheriff's department and he says, you got to come out here.
Yo, this is getting creepy, dog.
Travis Walton. We'll have to describe it to you when you get here because trying to do it over the phone is not going to do it justice. But he's gone and we don't know where he went.
Sound believable. I'm not going to lie to you. This shit went from being, I don't know if I believe this, ha to shit. I ain't even halfway through the shit and I'm already kind of sold a little bit. But I ain't going to lie, though. This is pretty weird, dude. Yeah, this is.
Because trying to do it over the phone is not going to do it justice, but he's gone and we don't know where he went. So shortly thereafter, Sheriff Marlon Gillespie and Ken Copeland, they're partners, they show up at this rest stop where this payphone was, and they get to the scene. They see Ken Peterson, who made the call to them, and they're like, all right, tell us what's going on. The crew has now gotten out of the truck. They look distraught for sure.
Shit.
And Ken begins to try to describe what happened, but he hasn't said UFO, he hasn't said aliens, he's just said, we were up at the logging site, we had a contract up there, and then, just, it's hard to describe, and
don't know where to start without sounding freaking crazy, damn.
There, and then, just, it's hard to describe, and Mike Rogers jumps in, he's like, we saw a UFO, and a ray of light hit Travis, and then he disappeared. And the sheriffs are looking at them like, really? And so they stopped them and were like, all right, I need to search your truck.
For real.
Make sure you guys aren't under the influence of something. And they're like, we haven't done anything. We've been working all day. They search the truck, nothing. They check each of them to see if they're sober, and their field test showed they were all sober. And the Sheriff Gillespie, who was the overall in charge sheriff, even though he was a total skeptic, and so was Sheriff Copeland as well, he would say about that first engagement with the 6 crew members,
it felt legit.
They were obviously shaken up by something. Something had happened. They don't know what it was, but they were shaken up. And what Sheriff Gillespie believed was that they were creating a hoax to cover up a real crime. He believed that they had harmed Travis Walton.
And don't get me wrong, because it is, look, by default, don't get me wrong, if anyone tell you this damn story, you're gonna look for so many other things. Like, hell no, like, I wish he would move this damn alien face, dog. Like, legit, the first thing when he told the cop that, I was like, that cop go instantly think like, yo, they are under something. Or on something. Or off something. Dog is legit looking me right in the face.
Crime. He believed that they had harmed Travis Walton, and they were using a UFO to cover it up. But he also was thinking to himself, like, this is a bad hoax.
Yeah, because that'd be like, I'm giving
it's
myself
not very
away
well
at this
planned.
point.
They don't really have their stories really lined up particularly well. They're not doing a good job explaining it. The only thing they're doing well is acting scared. A couple hours later, the sun's starting to come up because it was super late when all this happened. And Sheriff Gillespie and Sheriff Copeland have organized this huge search effort up in the forest where Travis had gone missing. And the crew members, they're all there as well. A bunch of volunteers showed up and they are scouring the area. I mean, they got dogs out, they got these huge teams looking everywhere, and they can't come up with anything. I mean, they're looking everywhere, there's no sign, there's nothing. There's nothing from Travis. And so while this is all going on, Sheriff Copeland and Sheriff Gillespie have started coming over to Mike Rogers and the rest of the crew and being like, hey, if you just tell us where Travis Walton's body is, like, we'll go easy on you guys. Like, we know you did it. And they can feel that the pressure is really mounting, that if they don't find Travis, even though they didn't do anything, according to their story, they're going to face serious repercussions because that's the way the world works. You don't get to say aliens did this and not have any blame placed on you because there's no proof. They just have their own eyewitness testimony. That's it. And so the crew has started to become very worried about what's going to happen. They're worried about Travis, of course, but they're starting to see that like they're going to be prosecuted for this unless they find Travis. And so they're all very stressed out. And they noticed during the search, this first day of searching, that these 3 guys wearing red jackets had these tools that were scanning the ground, almost like a metal detector.
Oh, hold on, this somebody in my door. Hold up, dog. He's getting shot, boy. The aliens about to get my motherfucking ass. My bad, dog. I thought the damn aliens was coming to get my ass. I ain't gonna lie, though. Real talk, what I was thinking, not being funny. Legit 100%. Because, I mean, hey, they might have personalities, too. I was like, damn, it would be fire, though, if you did just happen to get abducted by a cool alien. It was legit, like, helping you out and just showing you shit. Like, yo, look at this shit. That'd be dope. I'm not being funny. I'm dead ass, dog. Let's go. Let's get back to it. Damn, y'all hoes got ass up here, bro. I'm telling you, dog. You gotta come to this motherfucker, mo bag. Hey, come get me, mo dog. You think I'm being funny, but that would be fire, dog. Damn, y'all got some hoes up here. Y'all boys blow up here. That's what's up, bro. I call some alien hoes. But no, the other parts, that was jokes, though. Probably. But I do be legit thinking that for real, though. I'm just being 100 with you this video. I do be wondering, like, yo, if I get one, I do wish it to be like a cool one. Who will legit not fuck with me, just do some shit and send me back like Travis. But I don't know what happened to Travis. Not saying he got a cool one. I'm just saying.
They're going to be prosecuted for this unless they find Travis. And so they're all very stressed out. And they noticed during the search, this first day of searching, that these 3 guys wearing red jackets had these tools that were scanning the ground, almost like a metal detector. And Mike Rogers, he was hoping that during this investigation that they would have people come out that were like paranormal investigators. I guess maybe he was naive to think that the police would actually do that. But he thought, you know, given the fact that we've all said this is a UFO.
Yeah, because honestly, they don't believe it. They're looking for other type of evidence at this point, which honestly can't really blame them for right now.
Given the fact
because they're not going to believe it.
This is a UFO that zapped Travis, who then disappeared, that they would have at least one person representing the kind of paranormal side of the investigation coming out. And so he sees these guys in red with their special tools that seem like a metal detector, and his gut says they're paranormal investigators. And so Mike goes over to them and he's like, hey, what are these tools you guys are doing? Like, what is this? And they look at him and they're like, oh, well, this tests for radiation. We're scanning for radiation in the area. And he asked them, like, well, what group are you guys with? Are you with the sheriff's department? And they just didn't really answer him. They said, oh, you know, we're just checking for radiation in the area. That's just what we do. And Mike sees an opportunity. Because when that ship emitted that ray of light that ultimately blew Travis Walton 20 feet and then, you know, evaporated him or something, they were within range of that big ball of lightning, and they were very much in the kind of cone where, had there been radiation coming off of that ship, he believed that perhaps they would have been hit with it. And so he asked the guys with the red jackets on and their little radiation tools to scan the crew's jackets and bodies to see if they were radioactive. And so the crew comes over and they scan them, and there's nothing. There's no trace elements of radioactivity. They're like, no, there's nothing. And then Mike realizes that from the time they called the sheriff until this search, they had all the crew gone home and changed, then come out to do this search. And so he thought, well, then, you know, any of the radioactive materials would have been on our clothes, which aren't here, but we have our hard hats in the back of the truck that were out here the whole time. They were potentially exposed to whatever was out there from the ship. Can you test those? And so he brought over one of their helmets.
He's gonna go positive.
And the guy in red scans his helmet, and the ticker goes all the way over, fully radioactive. And the guy in red, like, looked up at Mike and looked down at the helmet, and he's scanning it, and he's looking at him, like, kind of trying to size him up.
Okay, hold up, y'all. I keep hearing this bump. What the hell, dog? Yeah. Sir. Hey, you know what's crazy? My bad, I need to get up and stretch anyway. You know what's crazy, though? As I'm listening to this story, whatever. So I'm like, okay, I wonder if I read one of the books or if I watch one of the movies, like, please let me know a good one to watch. I legit want to watch it. But I was like, or hearing this story from someone else's perspective, I was like, what would I be as sold? Because I'm not gonna lie, it's some stories I've heard from channels that you'll hear, sometimes you bump into multiple times, and you look at it different, like, I don't know. Or it's like, oh wait, this sounds a little different. It might be for real or fake, whatever. Regardless, basically what I'm saying is, I don't know if I'm sold, because being a little biased here, or a lot of shit is adding up. I should say that.
Way over, fully radioactive. And the guy in red like looked up at Mike and looked down at the helmet, and he's scanning it, and he's looking at him like kind of trying to size him up. And then he turns and he kind of gestures at the other two in red and tells them to stop doing what they're doing. And they come over and they're scanning the helmets as well. And then without any indication of what the results were, what this meant, because Mike is kind of waiting for them to tell them what's going to happen, the guys in red just turn around and say, okay. And they just start walking away. And Mike's like, well, wait, what does this mean? And they don't turn around, and they just walk away from the search site. And so the other crew are watching this happen too. And Mike and the crew are like trying to get them to come back, but they're not turning around. They're just leaving, and then they're gone. And so Mike goes over to the sheriffs, who they know the sheriffs think they did something to Travis. These are not their friends, but they figured we need to ask them who those guys in red were. So they go over to Sheriff Gillespie and they're like, hey, who were those guys in red jackets with the radiation detectors? And Sheriff Gillespie's like, who? There's no one here looking for radiation. Everyone here is here because I
bullshit.
Who are they? Where are they? And he's like, well, they just walked over there. They went around the corner there. And Sheriff Gillespie's like, well, I didn't order them there.
Oh, like someone. Oh shit. Like my bad overreactor out. Like someone came to clean up the mess, but y'all ain't supposed to know. Oh my gosh. I'm not about to watch this shit, dog. Damn. What if it was legit, like on some shit like legit that powerful words? Like I could make it so them motherfuckers don't know I'm here. Come with me, dog. I don't know. Okay, I ain't gonna lie, at this point, it's too good. It's feeling like a book, it's feeling like a movie. It's really good. So, unfortunately, I'm sorry. I'm kind of leaning back over to the, all right, I don't know, dog side. Like, I don't know if I believe, dog, that side.
They went around the corner there. And Sheriff Gillespie's like, well, I didn't order them there. And it would turn out that they couldn't locate these three people. No one knew who they were. Mike went around and asked anybody who seemed like an authority figure if they knew who these people were. They asked people if they had interacted with them, and no one knew. So after this search that goes on for a couple of days, turns up nothing. There's no sign of Travis. The town of Snowflake, Arizona really turned on the 6 crew members. Everybody believed that they had done something to Travis. You know, that this UFO thing was
Arizona is a big desert.
Harmed Travis, and they were using this as a cover-up. And the sheriff department, they really perpetuated that. They were pretty open about, this is not a UFO situation, this is not an alien abduction, this is a missing person case, and frankly, we believe the UFO thing is a hoax. National and international media had picked this story up, and it became this massively viral story all over the world. And you know, news media outlets are converging on Snowflake.
Oh wait, Arizona man captured by a UFO in one of the most baffling cases ever recorded. A young laborer was taken aboard a UFO in full view of 6 terrified coworkers and held for 5 days. The stunned witnesses readily agreed to take the lie detector test. 5 passed. Proving they were telling the truth. The 6 was so nervous that the results of so makes sense, but let me just read a little bit more. The results of his tests were inconclusive. The abducted man, 22-year-old Travis Walton of Snowflake, Arizona, suddenly disappeared when struck by a dazzling ray from the strange hovering saucer. It got a little, as you can obviously tell, I used to love to read in school. I was that goofy that used to love to raise a hand. And sorry if you couldn't read, you had to pick. Well, I'm picking your ass. I'm sorry. See, I mean, because they are tree trimmers, so I was like, yo, they got all the space to set up everything they need. So I don't know, dog. Then we saw a flash in the trees and figured the saucer was leaving. And you know what's crazy as I'm reading this? Okay, something could happen where he just legit got hurt. I don't know, and legit something clicked, like some brain problems there. But this legit sounds like the story, because they did say this was what, year 1975 or something like that, right? It sounds like the story that made the blueprint for what you believe in aliens now, whatever. That's what it really sounds like. Because like I said, strangely, as I was watching it earlier, let me slow down. Strangely, as I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, this sounds familiar. Oh, this sounds like the way I look at aliens. And because growing up, always into true crime and horror-ish, I always watched it, and you used to always get those freaking alien ones on Unsolved Mysteries and shit, right? And sometimes you just watch like, what was it? I think it was like X-Files or something. You know, that didn't really grab me that much. But either way it go, though, So I always had in my head what I pictured it to look like. So now I'm wondering, like, okay, I think I'm looking at this from the wrong perspective because, like I said, this sounds like the blueprint that was set up for everything. Like, oh, how you look at the situation. So therefore, I'm judging it off of like, no, this can't be right because this sounds too much like what will really happen. But I do have to remember, back in this time, I don't know. At this time, I wouldn't know that. I wouldn't have those ideas, whatever. So then, shit, would I then look at it like, yo, this may be real because I've never heard no shit like this and they all are telling me this, versus right now me knowing, like, yeah, this is the basic version of the alien story. It's like, this is probably why. And not even trying to play devil's advocate. It's just legit. I'm one of those people, I legit gotta look at it from a different perspective. Like, okay, let me put your shoes on. You saw it's weak, but let me see. Okay, boom.
Story all over the world. And news media outlets are converging on Snowflake, Arizona, and they're inundating the sheriff's department with requests for more information about this alien abduction. And it's really frustrating the two sheriffs who are leading this investigation, Sheriff Gillespie and Sheriff Copland. And they were already skeptical and really upset about feeling like they were being taken advantage of by these crew members, this hoax, right? That's what they believed it was. And so Sheriff Gillespie and Copland decide, you know what, we're going to just cut through all the BS here and we're going to make these boys take a lie detector test. So they go out and get one of the country's best polygraph examiners to come in and administer a lie detector test on each of the 6 crew members. And so one by one over the course of the day, each crew member was tested for 2 hours, same questions, all centering on the criminal side, the kind of foul play angle for Travis Walton. They all go through it. And it turned out that 5 of the 6 had all shown that they were telling the truth.
Yeah.
And the 6th person, it was just inconclusive. It didn't mean that he was lying. It just meant that the test wasn't done very well. And this polygraph examiner had anywhere from a 92 to 98% accuracy rate. He was one of the best in the country. And he even would say, like, it would be so difficult. Examiner had anywhere from a 92 to 98% accuracy rate. He was one of the best in the country. And he even would say, like, it would be so difficult to fake that. To have 5 people, let's say this is all a big hoax and they harmed Travis Walton. It would be almost impossible to have 5 people be able to pass my examination and have nobody slip up.
Woo.
They were telling the truth. And so the examiner tells the sheriff, and the Sheriff Gillespie is dumbfounded, because he believed that they were going to find out they were all lying and that this could just be a pure criminal investigation and it would be, let's go find Travis Walton's body. But now the examiner's saying they're telling the truth. And so Detective Gillespie and his partner are like, now what do we do? And then 5 days after Travis's disappearance, Travis shows back up. During numerous interviews, Travis would say that he remembers waking up on a road and he didn't recognize where he was, but it was nighttime, it was raining, and he sensed a very bright light above him. And so as he's laying, he kind of turns his head to look up into the sky and he sees what looks like the underside of that ship, because he remembered how struck he was by the beauty of the kind of engineering underneath that disc UFO they saw in the forest. It looked the same. His vision was not great, but he's looking up and he's pretty confident that's what he's looking at. And then it flies into the sky and it's gone. And he's left in total darkness on a road in some place he doesn't know. And he remembers standing up and feeling very weak and depleted and dehydrated. And he just knew that he had to get to civilization. He had to just go in a direction and find someone who could help him, because he was so weak and he would die out there if he didn't find someone who could help. And so he musters the strength to stand up and he starts kind of staggering down the road. And eventually, through just adrenaline, he just starts running. And luckily, he sees up ahead there is a rest stop. And at rest stops, there's payphones. And he makes his way down and he goes to the payphone and he has change in his pocket still. He puts it in the payphone and he ends up calling his brother. And his brother he can't believe he's talking to Travis, because Travis is probably supposed to be dead at this point. He didn't believe it was Travis, but Travis just said to him over and over again, "It's me. They brought me back." And he tells him where he is, because now he recognizes.
I'd be scared. Like, who brought you back, boy? What the fuck?
Dead at this point. He didn't believe it was Travis, but Travis just said to him over and over again, "It's me. They brought me back."
But not gonna lie though, even though I say that, I will be beyond happy, boy. Even if I will feel like it's on some Pet Cemetery shit, I will still be happy. I'm not gonna lie to you.
He didn't believe it was Travis, but Travis just said to him over and over again, "It's me. They brought me back." And he tells him where he is because now he recognizes that this rest stop is actually in Snowflake, Arizona. When his brother picks him up, Travis would say that...
Maybe not on a Pet Cemetery shit, though, because, nah.
Actually in Snowflake, Arizona. When his brother picks him up, Travis would say that he believed that this was just minutes after, the initial abduction. He didn't even know he had been abducted. This is like he's coming to and he's like, man, what happened? Like I was just over at that clearing where I saw this ship and now I'm over here. Like, what am I doing here? And so Travis's brother...
I knew it. Oh, God, what I say? Oh, gosh. Because it's like, yo, when they wipe that, and just like, boom. You just pick up where you from. And again, 100%, I'm not a believer, but I am a believer. Okay, let me rephrase all of that, blah. I am a believer in aliens. I am. But far as the things that they do from the stories we hear, I'm not 100% sure I believe like the looks and how things work. And only thing that was missing from the other part, I was just waiting on to say like, yo, and it was an anal probe going on. So I was like, at that point, I'd be like, okay, you know what, at this point, yeah, it's too textbook for me. But then again, like I said, gotta remember this is 1975, 76, I don't know. So maybe there was happening before this, I don't know. This just feels like a really big story where it's like, this is the blueprint. All right, no more talking, my bad. Oh, shit, dude.
Over at that clearing where I saw this ship and now I'm over here, like, what am I doing here? And so Travis's brother is looking at him like, where have you been? We've been so worried about you for the past several days. And Travis, who was kind of almost catatonic, he's in shock, he doesn't know what's going on. He looks at his brother and he's like, what do you mean days? And his brother's like, you've been missing for 5 days. And so Travis would say that when he heard this news, this revelation that he had been missing for 5 days, it absolutely put him into shock. He was in a catatonic state where he couldn't make sense of it. And so he just sat there quietly. And his brother's like looking at him, not really sure what to even ask. He asked a couple times what happened and Travis just didn't answer because he didn't know. He couldn't
I think I would start asking like old memory shit just to see if he remembers stuff like, I don't know, stuff that happened with us in the past before all of this shit. Just to see where his mind stand, or just to see if this is actually who I think it is. Lucky my voice went away and I'm out of weed, because to really go in conspiracy mode a little bit more with you, I'd get to thinking like, what if it's a clone? What if it's not? What if it's a shapeshifter? We gonna get into all that shit, all right? I mean, honestly though, the only reason why most of us, including me, a good amount of us, I should say, don't believe it is just simply because we've never seen it. But I mean, think about it. We're real, like I talked about earlier, really small. I don't know. I just feel like shit really exists out there. Who said this quote? We're gonna get back to my bad. I'm a bomb it, but it was like either way you look at it is really scary, because either we are alone here or we're not. Scary either way you look at it to me.
Absolutely put him into shock. He was in a catatonic state where he couldn't make sense of it, and so he just sat there quietly. And his brother's like looking at him, not really sure what to even ask. He asked a couple times what happened, and Travis just didn't answer because he didn't know. He couldn't explain it. And so Travis's brother decides, instead of just immediately calling the police, I want to bring you to a hospital, because clearly that needs to happen. And frankly, with the media circus, as soon as they find out you're back, it's just going to be mayhem, and I want to make sure you're taken care of first. So he drives to Phoenix, Arizona, and he brings him to a hospital. And he asked the doctors to be discreet, and he has a doctor do an examination. The doctor knew who Travis Walton was because he'd been following the news. And he's doing an examination of Travis, and he was malnourished and he was tired and looked very sick, but there was no physical wounds, with the exception of he had one puncture site in his arm, in the crook of his arm. Travis was not a drug user, so it wasn't like that was, a mark from using drugs. It was a puncture site, and they assumed someone had recently put a needle in his...
And if that mark was on the head, then I'd have taken, well, okay, something happened there, but it wasn't on the head.
From using drugs. It was a puncture site, and they assumed someone had recently put a needle in his arm. And also the doctor drug tested him and tested his blood, and there was no drugs in his system. It wasn't like he'd been using any sort of substance. There was no physical wounds, with the exception of he had one puncture site in his arm, in the crook of his arm. Travis was not a drug user, so it wasn't like that was, a mark from using drugs. It was a puncture site, and they assumed someone had recently put a needle in his arm. And also the doctor drug tested him and tested his blood, and there was no drugs in his system. It wasn't like he'd been using any sort of substance. So he kind of had a clear bill of health, minus the injection site and looking pretty ragged. And so after the examination, Travis's brother brings Travis back to his home in Phoenix, Arizona. As soon as they get back, his home phone is getting constant phone calls. It had made its way to the sheriff's department back in Snowflake, Arizona, and they are nonstop calling Travis's brother. Like, hey, we hear he's back. We have to talk to him. We have to talk to him. Sheriff Gillespie, he drives all the way to Phoenix. He goes in and he sits down to talk to Travis. And Sheriff Gillespie would say that Travis looked like he was in shock. He looked like he had been through something traumatic.
Damn.
It did not seem like he was acting. And he starts asking Travis what happened. And Travis, he does mention the UFO. He mentions seeing this thing in a clearing. You know, he gets struck by some light. He doesn't know what it was. And then, you know, he's on the road 5 days later and he can't really make sense of what happened. He just didn't really know what happened over the 5 days. And finally, Sheriff Gillespie just kind of doesn't really give up. He's like, well, we have no way to arrest him. We have no proof of anything. And so we decided we're going to be in touch, and he drives back. And then media starts showing up. Huge news trucks start showing up outside. Everybody found out, because this was a huge story, where he was, and everybody
I think this one was on Unsolved Mysteries.
Finally, the National Enquirer, they reached out and they said, hey, if you give us an exclusive story, if Travis speaks to us about what happened to him, we will get you out of here, we'll bring you to a private location, and we'll even pay to have Travis undergo a whole other battery of tests that are not typically done to see if they could figure out what had happened to him. And so they agree to go with the National Enquirer. So by the time he's actually sitting there looking at the National Enquirer, he's had a little bit of time to maybe let his memory kind of kick back in about what had happened. And he's having these flashes of memory of what happened over those 5 days. Because initially all he could remember was seeing the craft and then being on the road 5 days later. And so when he's sitting down with the National Enquirer people, he begins to recall what actually happened over those 5 days. And so this is what he said happened. He said that he remembers getting out of the truck and walking up to this craft. And he remembers his crew members yelling at him to come back. He knew they were yelling at him to come back. He just wanted to look at the craft a little bit longer. And then right as he was about to turn around and head back, the craft started moving. This loud kind of mechanical, eerie sound is being made. And before he had a chance to run back, he gets hit with this lightning bolt of some kind. Then he remembers being in the presence of some doctors. He saw white lab coats, masks, and facial coverings, and he's kind of in and out of consciousness, and he's, you know, this orange light around him, but he definitely sees what looks like medical professionals, and he's thinking to himself, whatever happened with that ship, it must have hurt me, and my crew must have scooped me up and brought me to the hospital.
I can see why he would think that. So
in his kind of in and out state, he's aware that he's around medical professionals, at least what he believes are medical professionals. And at some point, his vision clears. It goes from foggy and he's in and out to being pretty much lucid. And he looks down at his chest, and there's a rectangular box sitting on his chest that he didn't recognize. It didn't really look like modern medical equipment. It just looked like this almost like rock sitting on his chest. And he looks at that, and then he looks up at one of the people who's wearing a mask, who's working on him, one of the medical professionals. And this person is working on this box, and then the person looks at Travis Walton and then leans in to look even closer at Travis Walton, and Travis is horrified. It was this grayish, thin, narrow-headed figure that was very short, maybe like 4 feet high, who was looking in at him, and its eyes were like slits, and it's looking at Travis. And Travis, who's unbelievably scared at this point, pushes everything off of him and rips out all the cords that are attached to him. He kind of topples off of this table that he was on, and he realizes he's in a fairly small room, and there's 3 of these humanoid creatures in the room with him. And he picks up the biggest instrument he can see next to the table that he was just laying on. He didn't know what it was, and he starts kind of wildly waving it at them and screaming to leave him alone, like, get away from me. And he's trying to make sense of what he's looking at, and the 3 figures in lab coats start walking closer and closer to him. And they're just kind of looking up at him, trying to study him a little bit. They get all the way up to him, and he's waving, and he's almost about to hit one of them when they just kind of abruptly turn around and leave the room, leaving him alone in the examination room. And as soon as they leave, he watches them go down the little, outside the door, down the little hallway, and they turn left. And so he's practically paralyzed with fear, but he knows if he can't get out of this room, he's done for. And so finally he kind of gets himself together and he walks past the examination table. He goes down the hallway outside of the door, and instead of going left where they went, he kind of sneaks off to the right and starts walking. And he comes to another room, and it's a room that has a single chair in it. It's this tiny little room with a chair, and the chair is turned away from him. He begins to peer around the chair, and he sees that no one is sitting there. So he goes in front of the chair, and he's like touching the wall, looking for a doorknob or any sort of mechanism that can get him out of this room. And he said, like, the room, it was like this perfectly flat. Everything was flat and smooth. There was no door handles. He couldn't find a way out. And he ultimately sees on the chair that it looks like there's some buttons on the chair.
Like a room where somebody about to use to examine someone. We're gonna study you real quick. Dang, man, I can hear my voice is leaving, dude. It's like legit going away, my bad.
Couldn't find a way out, and he ultimately sees on the chair that it looks like there's some buttons on the chair itself. And he pushes all these buttons on the chair and nothing happens. And then in the doorway where he came in, suddenly a person, a man, appears in the doorway who's wearing what looks like a spacesuit, like an astronaut suit. And Travis is so immediately relieved, even though the weirdness of him being in an astronaut suit is pretty high. But he's like, it's a human. And he doesn't know what to think about the fact that he's now excited to see a human, right?
What'd I say? I don't think they had that little look. I don't know. Maybe some of them do. I don't know. The little bubble head and everything.
And he doesn't know what to think about the fact that he's now.
It's really pulling me in. I can't lie.
Right? Like, it's terrifying that you were just around these non-humans, but he's like in panic mode now. He sees another human being and he runs over to him and he says, "Please, you got to help me. I don't know where I am. You know, where are we? What is this? What's going on?" And he notices that the eyes of this person inside of the spacesuit, it's a man who at least looks like a man, but his eyes are distant. He's not making eye contact with Travis. It's like he's in a trance. And he said his eyes just seemed off. Like they weren't focused on him. It would be like if you're talking to someone, but they were like permanently looking away from you.
Oh, yeah,
There's
that
just
is creepy.
off about him, and he never spoke. And so he's trying to ask this guy, like, "Where are we?" And the guy takes him by the arm, and he just starts leading him back into the hall where he came from, and continued down the hall, not back towards the room where he was originally, but down the hall in the other direction. And they get to another door, and he opens it up, and Travis the whole time is like pleading with this guy to help him, and he thinks that this guy is helping him. He thinks that this is his savior, and he feels relieved that a human being, albeit a strange human being, is helping him. And eventually he stops asking him any questions because the guy in the spacesuit's just not reacting to him. They open this door and they go down into this huge hangar where there's all these spacecraft that look just like the one that he saw in the clearing, that Travis saw in the clearing. And they start walking down between all these spacecraft that are just hovering, much like they were hovering in the forest, seemingly able to just defy gravity. And the whole time, this guy in the spacesuit's saying nothing, and Travis is like, "What is this? What are these craft? Is this military?" Saying nothing. They walk to the far side of the hangar, and they open up another door, and they go into another this bright white room, and there's 3 more human-like people.
Even though I'm not gonna lie, I wouldn't believe it if the thing spoke. But that is one thing that I really legit do wonder. Like, what's the language they speak? I do wonder that. Like, shit everywhere else. Like, what does it sound like, dog? UFO videos don't really do it for me, not gonna lie to you, but just getting into like movies and stories and shit where people are just talking about alien abductions and alien encounters and shit like that, it always did intrigue me, as you can obviously tell from the entire video. It always did bring me in, but as much, I guess what I'm trying to say, as much as it does bring me in, though, it's like I'm still heavy on it's unbelievable side. It's really unbelievable to me. And then my brain like to do ish like, but what if they already got you with this some shit, but erased it, because that's really how it works, even though we don't know how it really works. And now I get to really sit there and think like, damn, what if that really happened? Oh gosh.
Go into this bright white room, and there's 3 more human-like people with the strange eye thing going on in spacesuits that are standing there next to another medical table, and they're looking not at Travis, but their bodies are aimed in the direction of the door they came in through. Travis goes in and he sees these 3 and he thinks, these people are here to save me. Like, again, I feel relieved to see humans, albeit strange humans, but nonetheless humans. And the guy who had brought him in there continues to lead him over to the 3 other people. and they pick him up and they put him on the table, and he starts kind of resisting because he doesn't know what they're doing. They're not speaking. He's like, what are you doing? And they force him onto this table, and he's feeling pretty weak at this point. And they take a gas mask and they put it over his face, and then he blacks out. And his next memory after that is when he woke up on the road and had the light above him that flew away, and he had to run down to the payphone to call his brother. Travis did not immediately go and speak to the crew members that were there that night. It took quite a bit of time. He was talking to press. He was, doing interviews. The police wanted to talk to him. There's a lot going on. But he eventually got together with the other 6 crew members.
Man, that's gonna trip them
They all met
up.
up at Mike Rogers, the crew boss's house, and they just said, you got to tell us what happened. And so he sits down and he tells the story. All of them believed him. They didn't want to believe him, but they believed him because they saw the first half of the story. They saw it for themselves.
Maybe.
And once he was done telling it, they didn't really have that many questions. They just felt bad. They felt like if they had just stayed there and taken Travis, he wouldn't have
I did think about that too. They guilt would have got me. Because I thought about that too. I was like, but what if they would have just stayed and watched what really would happen? Like, would I feel victim as well? Or would they would have just saw some more crazy shit? Or I don't know. Oh, man.
Bad. They felt like if they had just stayed there and taken Travis, he wouldn't have been taken, but they didn't know that. And so all of them would leave Mike's house that day, and they would all go their separate ways. They did not stay in touch. They went their separate ways. It was like this hugely traumatic event that even to this day, 40 plus.
Not gonna lie, I wouldn't trust you. I'm not gonna lie to you. You're my partner, and I saw that really happen. And for 5 days you've been gone and you remember nothing. Like I said earlier, I'm sorry. I'm too paranoid. I'm gonna assume hella shit that I shouldn't. I never ever feel comfortable chilling. We at the crib, whatever. And you right there just chilling on the couch, especially if you behind me, boy. Stop playing. No, sir.
And they would all go their separate ways. They did not stay in touch. They went their separate ways. It was like this hugely traumatic event that even to this day, 40 plus years later, when they talk about it, they're often brought to tears. Ken Peterson, his interviews are particularly striking because when he talks about it, he's an older man now. And he says, to this day, I'm scared to look out my window.
Damn.
Because I'm afraid I'm going to see a spaceship. And he starts crying when he talks about it. I mean, this had a profound impact on these 7 men. And some of them didn't do so well. This whole story, it ruined their credibility. Even though this is the most believable alien abduction story, the truth is...
I'm not gonna lie. I think this is the most believable one I've ever heard. Not gonna lie to you. I am not gonna lie. This I would definitely agree.
Even though this is the most believable alien abduction story, the truth is most people think it's a hoax. One of them, like his own family, basically disowned him because they felt so embarrassed about this whole story. They don't believe him.
Why would you just? Oh my gosh! Why would you just own him over that? Even if I felt like my kid was lying, I ain't gonna disown him over that. It ain't like the dude was dead. All right, ain't like he out there offing people. I might feel like, you might be a little crazy, but I don't know.
Folks,
damn.
One of them, like his own family, basically disowned him because they felt so embarrassed about this whole story and they don't believe him. So if this was a hoax, like to what end? What did they get out of it? Nothing.
I ain't seeing no benefit.
Their lives. Following this case over the span of 40 years, there would be 16 lie detector tests taken, 5 by Travis Walton and 11 by the remaining crew, and they would all pass. The one member of that initial polygraph set, when 5 had passed and 1 was inconclusive, he was retested the same exact test, and he did pass. It's just one of those things where we're left with this incredible story where modern technology says they're telling the truth, but we can't fit that truth into what we think of as normal life. And so we've just decided that there's going to be a group of people that believe and there's going to be a group of people that don't. And we're left to pick which side you're on.
Oh, man.
What side you sit on? Was this a hoax? Was this an abduction? Or was this something else? Let me know in the...
Oh, gosh. I'm not going to lie to you. When he showed Ken's face, and I don't know if that was a real photo or not. I didn't see if it said it or not. When he said that was real face, he didn't say it. When he showed Ken showing emotions to the way he felt whenever he told the story, if that was a real photo, I don't know. I'm assuming it was. If it was, damn, it looked really real. And I don't know actors and actresses by name, so if it was someone famous, oh my God, you don't know the person. If it was somebody I didn't know, my bad. But I'm assuming right now it's a real photo. But just hearing the story, it was like too much was adding up. I wanted badly to say, yo, that don't add up. That don't add up. But it's like, no, this is adding up. Like, stop doing this. I was like, okay, connected to him, like all 6 of them. Look, and I'm not gonna lie, when it came down to Travis actually, where his mind was kind of getting unclouded, where it's like, okay, things are becoming a little more clear. I'm not gonna lie, I went the direction of thinking like, oh shit, he about to try to get some fame off of this. Like, this is where it's coming in, and this is where I'm about to start calling bullshit. But I'm not. But honestly, dude, it was just like, yo, it legit seems for real, man. And I don't even know if they're getting paid for any of those book deals or brand deals and all. I should just say, I have no idea. Look, my voice is gone. By tomorrow, it's really gonna be gone. So I'm gonna go ahead and get up out of here. Go ahead and click the like button. I hope it don't sound like it's really, like you can't hear it, because I have my gate up really high on my mic, so it cuts out really small noises. So I'm hoping I don't sound like that to you. But regardless of, my voice is leaving at this point. Yo, if you enjoyed the video, I do want to know in the comment section. I do want to know. I want to know. I want to know. Oh, the beauty. I want to know your view on it, your take on it, for real, honestly, and on aliens in general, like the situation in general. I do want to know your take on it. But yo, I'm out of here. Enjoy your day, morning, evening, night, whenever you're watching this video. But I'm out.